Almost live. Hey, we are live. We are live. Sabaho, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. As you probably already see, I have with me the man, the myth, the tech and tea, basically of all things. Joshua Vergara. Good morning, sir. How are you?
It's so early. No, I'm kidding.
It's not that bad. I
Yeah, I
normally
know.
try to do it around 10 a.m.
Hmm.
We're using a different service this time. If you guys were with us last week, we did have some technical problems with YouTube Live, but I don't think it was YouTube. It was mostly my network for some reason decided to go, bupkis. But this time, we were able to work it out through StreamYard. So I have some people starting to show up in the live stream. Matt Tyler's in there, Javier is in there, Ratner's in there. Issa's in the live chat. Hey, Issa, how you
Hmm.
doing? Check it out. Check it
My
out. Issa's
better
hitting up
half.
with some, yes, the other half of Tech and Tea. And of course, well, the other half. And then, of course, good morning, Richard with us as well. Matt Tyler, of course, one of the big fans of the channel as well. And then, of course, we have Shahryar. Hopefully, I'm saying correctly. Shahryar Hussein. What's up? Good morning. And then, of course, Tim Raid starting up in the morning with us. Oh, man, more and more people are stirring up.
Let's
He
do it.
says, yeah, exactly. So, just because this guy's name sounds very close. Okay, so this is a Tariq Reed. I'm
Yeah.
Tariq. Welcome to the club. And so today I wanted to actually kind of ask Josh to come over on the show to discuss something. Obviously, it's a big part of this week in the tech world, and that's essentially the OnePlus launch, basically, as you probably already saw. And Josh, yes, so that interstellar glow, man, that color is, or that combination of colors is just crazy. What do you think of that color on that one? I just very few people have it, obviously. So
Yes, very few people have it. And I was actually, I don't remember where I said this. I might have actually said this to our OnePlus friends during our little briefing for this. I remember
Mhm.
asking them, is Interstellar Glow available for the Pro? And they were like, no, it's only on the regular. And I was like, that's a brilliant move because imagine this. You're the person who walks into a T-Mobile or a Verizon looking for a new phone,
Yeah,
and you see this sitting on the counter. You put this up against any other phone currently, and if you're just the kind of person who's looking for a good phone for not an extravagant price, this
yep,
is literally the cheapest high-end 5G phone right now, and it's also arguably the best looking. Like I was like,
definitely.
that's a very brilliant move on your part, OnePlus.
As much as I would have loved to have it on the Pro, I agree. It's an amazing color. I mean, they obviously have some cases for it too. There's the sandstone case, which I'm surprised that they decided to go with a different color this year.
True.
But I love the color. I like it, and some people may feel like because of the reflectiveness of it that it becomes really hard to take pictures of, and it is. It's a challenge. But I
Yeah.
find that you're able to augment the beauty of it by reflecting other things into it. So use it for what it does best. It reflects.
Mhm.
So I posted a picture on Instagram, and I just when I saw the picture, I'm like, wow, that just looks really really nice. But uh,
Mhm.
the Pro, obviously there's the 8 and the 8 Pro. So OnePlus announced two different devices. And if you guys would also like to know a little bit more, Josh did have a live stream with. I, so who did you actually have the live stream talking about the OnePlus X?
Oh, the OnePlus X. Okay, so I did an IG live with Nick Gray,
Oh,
editor in
Nick Gray.
chief
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bandjoy. Hmm.
Exactly. So Josh has a live stream that went up, I think was it a day or so ago, talking about, because there was a lot of rumors about the OnePlus X. Obviously, there's a lot of people that talked about it. We heard that they were supposed to be coming out. They were supposed to be part of the actual event, but something happened. And, the rumor mill essentially is that, it got delayed because of the current situation. So
Sure.
but I think there was a good conversation. If you'd like to check it out, there'll be some information for you guys, of course, in the description to be able to connect with Josh. So let me go ahead and make sure. I'm trying new things, by the way. So if you guys are seeing new banners and stuff, that's me learning new tricks in StreamYard.
And
so
you know what? This is also a testing bed as well. And there you go. You can see it. Links. Click the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
description for
See,
links. That's awesome.
we are professional now.
So yeah, this is actually a good testing bed because, as TK was saying, we're using, well, he is using a service called StreamYard for this right now, and this is also a way for
Mhm.
me to actually see how it works. So I might end up using it also. So this is both of us actually learning about this.
Yes, yes, actually, and it was because of Josh that I decided to upgrade, and I'm trying to use it for the full potential and see how it
My check
works.
is in the
And
mail.
thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, sponsored by Josh. Hashtag no, not really, but um, it's a great tool if you guys have ever thought about trying to do, and it's not sponsored or anything. This is obviously something, as I said, I just purchased a month subscription to it. I've used the YouTube live system and it works great, and it does a lot of good opportunities to be able to control things, but I find it not as reliable in the way of interacting. Like the dashboard needs still some work, but also the ability of having the simplicity of my entire chat being in the window that I'm looking at. And I'm also able to jump in, click on people. So like right here, here's Isa.
Oh
TLK
yeah.
is so yeah, right there. It's easily jump in, throw the comment in there. Everybody can see the comment, and we can react and answer it. And thank you, by the way, Isa, on that one. And then I can remove it, jump into the other one. It's very nice. So StreamYard is a very good service, and I'm hoping it pans out for both of us.
Yeah, for sure. All
But
right. Oh, by the way,
so
to anybody in the chat right now wondering why I'm not showing off my 8 Pro is because you're seeing that front-facing camera right now. That's another kind of cool thing about this streaming process is that TK's on the he's the leader of the he's the host of the show,
the
obviously,
host, I was
and I
going to
can
say, yeah.
join in. I can join in using a phone, and I was like, oh, that's pretty dope, actually. I'm into it. So this is the OnePlus 8 Pro, and as far as we're going to get into more of the details a little bit later, obviously, but take a look at this video. You can give us your thoughts about the front-facing camera using my feed.
So just to let you know, Josh, Isa sold. So that's it. We can end the stream. We're good. Thank you,
Issa
everybody.
sold on StreamYard, which means that I better take my card out and get ready for a 1-year subscription.
Congratulations, Isa. You just won from the show. That was the prize. Thank you. But so yeah, so overall, we're all learning, and I feel like StreamYard is a great service. So hopefully, I'll be able to keep using this for the future live casts. But so I'm very excited to be that we were finally able to share some of the information that we've had with us for some time, right? Because we had a good opportunity. It was roughly around the time where a lot of people were starting to stay home. That I got my device at the end of March. I got it on the 30th, and I was just going crazy. I was just like, oh my God, the display is absolutely fantastic. The ability of using, like, I love the way OnePlus approaches display. Well, at least so year over year, right? From last year with the 7 Pro, we had 90 hertz QHD display, massive battery, obviously a big device to start. And what I saw here is that they learned from what people appreciated about the 7 Pro and then took it up to a whole new level. But this was by far my first device that I've had QHD and 120 hertz at the same time. Obviously, we both played with the S20 Ultra. We have the option, but it's not at the same time. And this time, for me at least, it was great. And I think you have the opportunity at least to play with another device that has similar specs. How does it feel? I mean, when you use it with do you notice the difference? Is it something that you notice basically when you go from one device to another, or do you think people will probably not realize it? And 1080p at 120 is still a good thing.
Okay, so I the first analogy that comes to mind for me is like weightlifting, where you don't really feel the benefits, or you don't really feel like your body is actually feeling what the lift is doing for it until you put more weight on it. So I remember when I first started doing like weightlifting and whatnot, I just put like light weights on there and it's like, okay, I feel fine. And then I put like a whole plate on there and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what a pump feels like. That's how I feel about 120 at Quad HD. Because up until now, a high refresh rate was a good thing and it was enjoyable, but it never really felt like it was benefiting you in a way that actually was like must see. And now with the Oppo Find X2, for example, Find X2 Pro, and now the OnePlus 8 Pro, now it's like, oh, I can't go back, because a high refresh rate, high resolution screen, when you compare it to any other phone almost, it's what makes the 8 Pro actually feel like a futuristic device. It's more than just a computer that was shrunken down and you could put it in your hand. Now it feels like this is what a smartphone's meant to feel like.
Exactly. And I love the So for me, it works slightly differently. In the way I notice the benefit of it is when I try to use another device, because as you know, we're switching devices. We're trying to juggle the influx of things. It makes me a little bit the experience I have with another device that runs at 60 or a slower refresh rate. It just I notice it so much more. Like I'm like things are not
Yeah.
responsive. I almost like what happened, but that's because I'm switching. I'm using this as a main, so it's having a lot of my information into it. So I want to make sure that everything runs smoothly. But then I have to jump over to, other devices. I mean, I even have a device that runs at a higher refresh rate, but it's 1080p. It's not Quad
Mm.
HD. It's that offset. Do you benefit from it? And I feel I love the fact the way they did it. They gave us a larger battery, which is good, an extra 500
Hmm.
milliamp on the battery. They gave us the same fast charging that we wanted out of the 7T line of devices. So we have the Warp Charge 30T, not the standard Warp Charge. And I feel like, yeah, it's a win either way. If you go with the 8, I think we're still getting the 90 hertz, which is similar to what we saw before with the 7T. And I don't remember if the OnePlus 7 had a 90 hertz refresh rate because we never got it
Oh,
in the
the,
US. So, the
yeah,
7, the one
we
that came
didn't
out at
have
the
that.
7. Yeah, and I had a chance to play with it, but I almost feel like I need to dig up the video that I did on it to see if it does support 90. But I felt like the 7 was an upgrade from the 6T, but it didn't have the 90 hertz, and then 7 Pro did it. So for me, again, very big jump there on the display, and worth the upgrade if you're considering wanting to have a device that starts about eight
You know
ninety nine,
what's
right?
You know what's funny about that? Like the way that you kind
Yeah.
of navigated that just now, what I
Hmm.
actually really adore about what OnePlus is doing right now is that both versions are available at the same time. And that's something that we haven't had for the last few generations. It's like, I think the one that really pissed me off actually is we had the 7T and then everyone else got the 7T Pro. Like, what the hell? Like,
It was.
they granted the 7T is a fantastic device. If you still have a 7T, you're probably okay. Like, you don't really have to upgrade like fully yet. But
Mhm.
yeah, I remember when the 7T came out and I saw people talking about the 7T Pro, like in the UK and in Spain and whatnot. I was like, oh, come on, man, I don't want the 7T Pro.
So that was the weird part about it because they gave us the Pro at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, it seemed like more of just the 7T, but then they
Hmm.
pulled kind of like a quick fast one. Like if you remember back when we were in Maui during the Qualcomm Tech Summit last year, there
Yeah.
was some 5G testing with T-Mobile, and I think at the end of the year, T-Mobile did that surprise McLaren edition release. So that was the way of the 7T Pro to come out in the US, and I had that for a while. Um,
Mm.
I feel like it's smart for them to come in with both devices, like you said. I think it doesn't make sense. It did not make sense to me last year that we had the 7 Pro without the 7 and the 7T without the 7T Pro, which to me more like this is the market that wants diversity. We don't, most people, if they wanted the 7T and they had the 7 Pro, they probably wouldn't upgrade to the 7T. They'll probably wait till the 8 Pro. Now at
Yeah,
least they have an
true.
option. I feel like it's a good option and it's a good price point to start around. The 699 I think is the starting point with the 7. Sorry, with the
Hmm.
8. And I think 899, which coincidentally, I know a lot of people have talked about the pricing. It's like, why is it so much? The 7T Pro McLaren edition that came out at the end of the year with 5G with the 855 plus with the X55 modem actually was 899 on T-Mobile. So in the
But
US,
it
this is
felt,
not.
that's the thing. It felt ridiculous back then.
It did, but I felt like maybe they were trying to give us like a little bit of a preview so that it doesn't hurt as much when it comes in now. But I feel like the reality is it's something you have to consider. OnePlus is
Yeah.
adding in those features that we've wanted for years. We've wanted wireless charging out of a OnePlus device I mean, for years, ever since Samsung introduced it, and I've always asked, when is wireless charging coming? And I love the fact that the wireless charger on this is almost as fast as the wired charger. It's literally
Hmm.
interchangeable within a few minutes. So to me, it's a plus. I think when they're doing it right, and I love that they
Yeah,
don't just do it
absolutely.
halfway. Yeah.
I
So
actually, what's funny is, and not to pull too much focus away from the OnePlus, but it's just funny how I have the Warp Charge wireless right here, just
yeah.
docked right in front of my monitor. And actually, last night when I was doing a live stream with Issa, I had this phone on that dock, and it was just charging up the entire time we were doing the stream. So that's already kind of cool because what OnePlus did was they had the wireless charger be like propped up, which is I
Propped up.
think I think that's great for any wireless charger, to be honest. Anyone that's just like the little hockey puck, like it just makes no sense to me. But also, what I so recently I also did a review for the new Moto Gs, and now
Hmm.
the moment I say
Oh, that's right.
the moment I say the letter G, people's expectations are already different. But I have to say, like, I'm already spoiled by a 30-watt wireless charger. When I look at another phone that uses 10-watt wired charging, it makes me so sad.
It's hard because some of these devices also still support big, large batteries. So you're talking
Mhm.
about even longer time to charge these things. And I think in this day and age, with the ability of having, power delivery chargers that are up to 18, 30, 60-watt chargers in small form factors, there's really the battery, I think the battery technology needs to actually support it. And I think the way, I think it was Oppo's approach by splitting the battery into two different batteries and charging them
Yeah.
fast so that it kind of benefits from the speed. And obviously seeing with OnePlus is what they're doing here. Obviously, it's a proprietary charger. So if you're considering the charger that that Josh just mentioned, it only supports at 30 watts with a OnePlus 8 Pro currently. Possibly, obviously, with future devices. But if you put in, let's say, a Samsung device or any other device that supports Qi charging, I think it charges it at about 5 watts or 7 watts
I
max.
think it's fine. Well, I thought they said 10, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
a lot more standard for sure.
it's more of the standard, so you won't be able to benefit from there. Which
Do you
that's
get
one
annoyed by
part.
the fan?
I disabled the fan.
I
So
haven't. Okay, the bedtime mode is a great idea. Like I'm happy that they included that. So you slow
yeah,
down the wireless charging, and that allows the fan to quiet down.
yeah.
But I
And if I need
actually
it,
never
obviously,
noticed
yeah,
it.
tune it.
I
Hmm.
never noticed it, and then I think the other day I actually put the phone on there, and so on my desk here, and I'm not going to move the camera, but on my desk here I have my MSI laptop, which is
Hmm.
when I'm editing already a pretty loud hum. I have the
Yep.
PS4 right here on which I'm playing FF7 Remake, and I'm trying to do gaming videos on it. The PS4 is a
Studio
loud.
tour. Yeah,
The PS4 is a loud console,
yeah.
and what I found so jarring is that once I turned off those two things to get ready for bed, it was before the bedtime mode turned on the OnePlus 8 Pro on the wireless charger. I could still hear the wireless charger, and I was like, "Whoa, that's actually louder than I remember." Like it is, it's a hum. It's a bit of a hum.
It does actually turn. Yeah, but as I think what their intention was is as long as there's some type of an ambient noise going on, it's hard to hear it. Plus, it's positioned to go away from you, so the sound isn't coming towards you. So that it depends. Yeah, if you're using it as a nightstand, the bedtime mode is definitely a thing you want to use. And I like the fact that it's in there, but it does slow down, as Josh was saying. You won't be able to
Mhm.
get the fast charging. But the way I look at it essentially is if you set the timing correctly, this should be pretty perfect. There's no reason for
Yeah,
you not to be able to benefit from wireless charging. Your device will be topped off. And then I did the test that I did on my video. I actually turned off the phone and I ran it from 0 to 100 in literally an hour and 4 minutes, and an hour and 1 minute for the wired. So
nice.
no question asked there. Isa does have a question for you, and I'm not sure because I don't have the Ace 2. So let's see here real quick. So curious, will the Oppo Ace 2 work with that OnePlus wireless dock? And she later on corrected the wireless. It's not wireless.
You
She
can
meant
tell.
wireless.
I don't mean to throw my own girlfriend under the bus, but you can tell she's watching on her phone because look at the spelling.
It's spelled no. Hey man, I autocorrect. We all get into that, and
Well,
but
this
yeah.
is a funny
So
little nuance, by the way, because I kind of poke fun a little bit at her for that, and she's like, "Well, the thing is, since I type both in English and Tagalog, it's actually a bad
yeah.
idea to have autocorrect on because
Oh,
it'll
that's right.
mess up my Tagalog." So that's the reason why whenever I see that, I'm like, "Oh, she's on her phone."
But so I'm not very familiar with the Oppo Ace 2. I'm not sure
Very
if
recently announced. Yeah, they
yeah.
they're the Ace. I remember the Ace from last year. That's the phone that got the Gundam edition that everyone was just
Hmm.
drooling over. And I that one's supposed to be, yeah, the Ace is supposed to have some sort of like really crazy battery and charging and whatnot. I mean, Oppo's always been the king of charging,
Oh,
and
of course.
that VOOC charging is just nuts. Um, but yeah, I haven't heard too much about it, and it is curious if the Oppo Ace 2 will have a lot of the same technology because, as everybody says, and I'm sure people in the chat are already thinking about it, is that Oppo and OnePlus are basically like in bed together. So I mean, the technology might bleed over from one to the other.
Well, I think that's a lot of people's. I think originally a lot of people I would say maybe had a better educated guess saying that there's a good chance that we were going to get the QHD plus with 120 based on the X fine X2 no wait
X2 Pro.
X2 Pro. Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
too many
There's
pros.
a lot of names going on right now, everybody.
That's how it goes. But thank you, Isa, on that one. Um, so let me try to see if there's any other questions that are jumping in real quick.
One
Curious.
just popped in. Does the OnePlus 8 Pro? Okay, by the way, I can't pronounce whatever that name is. TK,
No.
is OnePlus 8 Pro give you the choice between 60, 90, or 120 hertz? It's between 60 and 120, right? I don't think there's a
It's
90.
61. No, and we've looked into the actual settings. It's not even an option. So I think it's for most people that probably have seen. XDA posted an article talking about how to enable the 96 hertz refresh rate on the S20 Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
There is a toggle for it, but at least in OnePlus, no. They went 60 90 on the 8, and they went 6120 on the 8 Pro.
Okay. There we go. Oh, by the way, a shout out to a couple of other buddies that we have here. Fat Produce is in the chat as well.
Exactly. So that was Haroon. Thank you, Haroon, for the question. I appreciate that. Sorry, I didn't mean to miss it there. Speaking of Fat Produce, let me see. So that's the beauty of it. Everything is in one database right there. Fat Produce walks in, greeting Earthlings.
There we go. Greetings,
Earthlings. Oh my God, Star Trek, Mike. Yes. So Fat Produce is also in the live stream, and I think if I'm not mistaken, so he's in the process actually of helping his dad choose between the Moto Z3 and the Moto Z Force. I feel like the Z Force was always a better choice, but I don't remember if the Z3 is when they started downsizing the specifications on the Z line. But I thought the Z Force was always higher because they went for a while, Motorola, where they were providing the higher spec on the Force side. And then at some point they decided, you know what, we don't have to compete with the higher specs. We could just basically give you a great experience with maybe a mid-tier processor. And I feel like the Z3 is when they started that. But I think I could be wrong, but good luck with that one. Hopefully you're able to get it running. And of course we have Aditya Neil. So we have a nice comment here from Aditya Neil. I got to head out and just want to say thanks for stopping by. And I love that picture of, I think that's Benedict Cumberbatch right there. Good.
Oh yeah, that is.
So
yeah, that is Sherlock.
I'll bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
So I have an offbeat question for you. I remember seeing when you were starting up the show again. It's Saturday mornings with tech and all that.
Yeah,
is Saturday morning cartoons still a thing, or that's nothing anymore, right? Like no one does that anymore.
I know I grew up with that. I know it's something that when I was growing up, Saturday mornings were always like the time because it was the first morning of the weekend that you had no more school. You didn't have to wake up early. You just turn on the TV, get your breakfast, and sit down. It changed. I think it changed. I don't think it's the same way it used to be. I think at least if I had to use my 10-year-old as a good measuring experiment there, it moved online. So he still does it. Saturday morning, wakes up, sits on the couch, wants to watch TV, cartoons and stuff, but it's more streaming. It's on demand. So I feel like it's, it's a good experience, but that'd be nice. Yeah, no, I think that was partially I would say the inspiration for Saturday morning with a side of tech or Saturday morning with tech.
I figured.
It was just something I felt like people are generally available. We don't have to work with schedules because most everybody's streams are generally in the evenings or late and day job. And, current situation is an exception, right? Everybody's available every day technically now. But I felt like it was a good opportunity for us to do, to use it. So I have a quick question here for my tech reviews. Hey, how you doing? How is 5G on the West Coast? That's 5G connectivity, especially since the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro both are 5G enabled because of the X55 modem.
Yes.
So how's 5G for? I guess we're both on the West Coast. We're about a couple hours away, but roughly within a certain experience. How's 5G been working with you with the OnePlus with the 8 or the 8 Pro?
In the area that I'm in right now. Okay, so I should probably preface this by explaining where my networks are coming from. I do have Google Fi. But I also got a T-Mobile SIM that shouts out to LG. They included a T-Mobile SIM with our V60 ThinQs.
I love
and
it.
that one has 5G network enabled. I
Hmm.
actually very rarely ever see 5G on my Google Fi cards.
Okay.
Um, but on the T-Mobile card, I started to see it more often, especially when I put it into the OnePlus 8 Pro and it was in the V60. Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say it's kind of spotty.
Okay.
It is fast. Don't get me wrong. Last night when my internet actually conked out for a little bit, and Issa and I were on our chat at like 2 in the morning. I was able to lean on the 5G connection, and it was pretty consistent at 2 a.m. But the handoff from 5G to LTE plus, because that's what it says at the top there,
Hmm.
is perfectly fine. Like I'm still having it's perfectly fine. Like I think 5G is still about a year's way out for everybody to actually enjoy it. But here on the West Coast, like
Yep.
when I have 5G, it's great, but it's only when I have it.
For me, it's been a kind of an experience where I feel like there's that halfway point. So for T-Mobile, because for me, that's what I have normally as my carrier. 5G is enabled where I am. I'm a little bit more north from where Josh is, and so it's kind of a just point of references for people to kind of just see roughly what speeds are and what's going on. What you notice here on the left side of the screen is, sometimes it'll say 5G, sometimes it'll say LTE, but my phone, for the most part, let me just take it off of Wi-Fi, will always say 5G on it, regardless if it hits
Mm.
an LTE tower or a 5G tower. So an example would be right now, it just came on. You guys could see that, right? Hopefully you guys can focus. So it's a 5G. It's connected to 5G, but if I run a speed test, it's going to hit it as an LTE. Connections are good if I'm close enough to a tower. On average, I'm roughly like about 50 down, 23 up, not that bad, but I'm able to hit faster at 134. So
Mm.
it's roughly what you should expect from when you consider using, the sub-6 type of 5G connectivity that we have.
Yeah.
Something that you want to keep in mind when you think of 5G on a OnePlus device, specifically with the series that we're talking about today, there's a slight difference in the spectrum of what the OnePlus devices will support. Um, only millimeter sorry I think it's only Verizon devices will support millimeter wave on Verizon,
Yes.
right? So those are the ones that are going to have the built-in antennas to support millimeter wave, not just the modem, but I'm talking antenna wise. So there is a hardware difference. It's not something that we can just swap a sim. And
Hmm.
every other version of OnePlus devices that are 5G enabled are compatible, at least in the US, with the sub-6 type of technology. So
Yes.
currently T-Mobile, and I think the AT&T should be, if you also have it activated on your account, although it requires a special SIM. So it's not something you could just plug in a SIM and suddenly get 5G the way T-Mobile does it. So it's there. It's going to provide us with better connection. But as Josh is saying, I think it's still growing and we need more towers, better market upgrade. So that, as time goes on, they'll upgrade more towers, add more of the 5G bands, and we'll be able to get more reliable. And I think it has improved from what I first saw it with the McLaren edition.
Mm.
I did want to mention Matt Tyler did kind of throw it out there not that long ago. The
Oh,
McLaren never
so
showed
I
up
was.
to UK.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were going to mention his other comment. Did you
Oh,
see the latest one that he put up? We had 5G until someone.
yeah.
We're
Somebody
not going to
decided
touch
to.
this. We're not going to touch this subject. I feel like, and I feel because we're just going to get mad. But honestly,
Yeah.
like, let me just give a hot take real quick. Um, it's fine to be skeptical about things. It's fine to have a healthy skepticism. But when someone presents to you the facts, you got to understand that it's the facts. Like, please just understand that 5G does not do what some people are saying. It just doesn't.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
It's definitely no, because I
Yeah.
think
We're
if
not.
I'm not
Oh my
mistaken,
God.
some of these
It's
things
such a can
can.
of worms right now.
No, but it was something that it also kind of I think it came up around the time of 4G LTE, which is very interesting, and I don't know why they
Mm.
did that. Um, so I did notice there's a question coming here from Shehriar. It's hard to say without rolling the R because there's a big R in there.
Mm.
So Shehriar is asking, is in the OnePlus 8 Pro, do we have a way of forcing 120 hertz like the OnePlus 7 Pro? That's a great question, and I will find out for you in 2.5 seconds.
I wish I
Because
could tell
that,
you, but I'm literally using the phone right now.
come on,
But and you know
so
what? Let me just say this. It's kind of funny how this. By the way, this service is working really well for us. It looks like the stream is going really well. I was supposed to be using my iPhone 11 Pro with an AirPod And I thought that would be a good time. But as I was getting into the lobby for this very show, I could not get any audio. Like my mics just weren't working off the AirPods or whatever the case may be. So that's why I had to lean on the OnePlus 8 Pro. So yeah, that's the reason why I have that in my as my camera right now.
Yeah, no, and I think it's great that we have the ability of, if one thing doesn't work, you can always try it. I think that's the reason why I chose StreamYard, because like I said in the beginning, if for any reason the stream decides to go kaput for me and I have to switch over to mobile, the stream stays live because you're in it, and then I'm able to jump back into it exactly the same way, and it keeps going, and it's recorded. So it's a lot of good things going on. So to answer Shahryar, no, it doesn't actually have the setting in there, but I'm assuming it's an ADB command because that's how we were
Oh.
able to initiate it last time first before it was turned on. But I
So
wouldn't be
not in
surprised.
developer options.
It's not a setting in the developer options currently. So it's to force 120 the way we had it with the 90. So and if I didn't find it because I didn't go through every single setting, I did a search for it. So I may need. I'm pretty sure it's an ADB command. It's not. It shouldn't be a situation where we don't have a way of doing it, but it's more the ability of just getting it to stay at 120, because we did have it with the Pro. I remember that part. So I'm doing the manual scroll and looking forward. So refresh rate, PPI, animation, USB debugging. I don't seem to see it there. No. So hopefully in the near future, but keep in mind, forcing it at 120 doesn't necessarily give you 120 hertz all the time, because you have to understand some apps need to actually run at their native supported resolution. So same way we're gaming on the device like this, not everything is going to run at 120. You benefit from the 120 where it's needed. So I feel like the automatic mode that OnePlus has in there does benefit us, because you want to have the smooth scrolling when you're using things like Twitter, Instagram, your settings tab, your app drawer. Those are things that you normally want to do it. And of course, any games that support it. But running 120 hertz on the camera app that only supports 60, there's not much of a benefit there, and you're not benefiting from the battery. You lose battery at that point. So keep in
Also, you're
mind.
going to end up, yeah, exactly. You're going to get like 2 hours screen on time at that point.
Exactly, yeah. And then you're like, and I don't know why the battery is not lasting. I think the best way to do it is, I think if we have it, it's always good to have it as a toggle. I always love to have those little toggles and then turning it on in there. But currently we don't have that. But I did actually, speaking, we were talking about the display, I did want to mention, I saw something from, and I'm not sure the person for which PR branch of OnePlus, Saf pointed out, put out a tweet not that long ago, earlier today, talking about when are we going to have always on display? This is like, if there's been a list of things we've wanted from OnePlus for years, right? Wireless charging. Obviously, we wanted to basically have obviously always on display come back, because it used to be on the devices, early versions of OnePlus, and it is natively built into Android, as you probably noticed with other devices that you purchased, like Samsung has it, Oppo has it. Well, I take that back. Oppo. I'm not sure. I know Xiaomi has it, but I'm not sure about the Oppo, if the Oppo devices do carry always on display. But there's a hint that the response was very, very, very clear. Soon. So that built up my hopes, and I'm like, okay, I can see this.
Can I just say though that like I loved the ambient display, like the way that they do it. I get that you might always want always on display, but if your phone, especially if your phone is within reach, what's wrong with just tapping the screen to get that info? Like,
I think it's more of the aesthetic look that the always on displays offer. What I mean by that is it's like it's more of like getting different logos, different things showing up on it. This is the I think that's more of what it is. You're right. The information itself, we have so many ways of getting that info. But I feel like with the way OnePlus does it, I think it would always be great. So if they're implementing it and they do a good job of it, obviously giving us the customizations for that will be great. Also on top of just not only just having that and me throwing the phone, there's also customizations as far as the horizon light. Now you can also change the color of the lighting on the effect on the edges when you have your phone down. So there's different ways to get notification. Cool, so it's not an one or nothing. So let me go ahead and switch over here and see if there's any more questions. Mobile Geezer's letting us know that 5G in Miami is also spotty as well. So Tim Raid has a question, and this one actually was also posted on on Twitter, which I was going to answer from there. It's a big one. It's a big question. So my thought on this one, how about let's think about it for a little bit. and we can circle back because I feel like it's a big question to answer. I mean, the OnePlus 8 Pro versus the S20 Ultra it's a hard comparison between two different companies that approach tech differently. You
Yes.
know, one is gives you everything in the kitchen sink, and that's how it's like that's how at least I see how Samsung's been doing it for years. They give you so much and they give you a lot. And they're trying to basically, you know, improve and do more things. I mean, we saw the 120 hertz. That's something that's very new to them. But it's hard to compare them to a OnePlus 8, especially a device that just came out. It's not available with everybody, so there's not really even a general consensus of how people will basically, you know, use it. Yeah, are they going to go buy it? Do they feel like the price is a big factor? So there's many different facets of comparison between two devices that are intended to compete, but I don't know if they're intended to compete with each other. I don't know how you feel like about them, but if you want to, we can come back to this. I was going to touch on that question because that was the one question that came to us from Twitter. And later on in the stream. So it's up to you. What do you feel like?
Okay, so I've had people actually call me out for constantly comparing the OnePlus 8 Pro to the S20 Ultra, and the way that I
Okay.
explain it is that first of all, the S20 Plus versus the OnePlus 8 Pro is obviously the more pertinent comparison. I agree with you there. But
Yeah.
what we're doing usually as reviewers is we're looking at the best of a company versus the best of another
Well,
company, and
that's
this is
true.
the
Yeah.
comparison. And a lot of people out there are going to be looking at the OnePlus 8 Pro as like, so this is what OnePlus deems as their top device. So let's put it up against the S20 Ultra and see what the S20 Ultra actually gives you that justifies an almost $500 increase in price.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, I cannot, now that the OnePlus 8 Pro is around,
Hmm.
there's not a whole lot that I can actually use to justify $1,400 on the Ultra anymore. It is a way to the comparison between these two phones is the way that you realize that if you are a Samsung fan, you should just go Plus. The Ultra doesn't give you enough to justify that price when you compare it to other phones right now. And the thing is, the 100 times space zoom, okay, fine. Take a picture of the moon once and then never again.
That's what I did. Yeah,
And
one time. There's never ever a situation where like, honey, hold on, can I take a picture of the moon for you? It, it,
hmm
it
Samsung Dex, you need to have the right cables, or you need to still connect it to a laptop. You need
so
to, you
that's a
know,
good point, and we'll talk about that. The next question after that will follow to Dex. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So Dex does kind of try to elevate to that price point a little bit.
Hmm.
120 1080p, OnePlus just proved that you don't need a high price point to get either of those specs.
Exactly.
And as far as performance is concerned, we have the same specs in a lot of other phones. So I don't know. It's one of those things where in Samsung's case, what they're trying to sell to you is the entire package in one place. And like you said, it's everything in the
And
kitchen
the
sink.
ecosystem. It's also an ecosystem. You got to say that. Remember, Samsung is not just about the smartphone, but there's an ecosystem, the smart things ecosystem that goes with it that also augments and works directly within Samsung devices. So you're right. It's there is so much more baked into it. It's kind of
Mhm.
it's hard, not to think of the entire image when you say you're getting a flagship from Samsung. You are getting so many more things with it. So
But the
I,
thing is, like, I guess my main point when it comes to the Ultra is that um, Samsung wants to be the company that says we have the only phone that has this combination of features and specs.
exactly. Yeah.
And that is true. They achieved that. But as we always say, like, no matter what, we might be spoiled as reviewers in that we get to try these phones out. We get to have both the 8 and the 8 Pro. We get to get the Ultra. Here's the thing. If you have to be you have to be honest with yourself that the
Hmm.
things you're going to pay 400 extra dollars for, you'll actually use. And if you end up buying the S20 Ultra and you eventually get to the point where you're like, why did I pay $1,400 for this phone? You only have yourself to blame. Like,
It, it, it,
I
it
hate to
wasn't
put
for
it that way,
everybody.
but that is
Yeah.
that is how I have to say it, because now we have choices that are under $1,000, and why wouldn't you look at that more?
Oh, even the decked out version. I mean, it literally. I mean, it touches the 1,000, but realistically, the decked out version of the OnePlus 8 Pro is at 999. So it's still
Yeah.
even at that. It doesn't even. I think Juan Carlos made a point on Twitter a few days ago that I really loved about it. Is people need to consider the fact that there's a big difference in where one device maxed out ends at 999 or $1,000, where another device starts at 999 and goes up from there. Big difference in spectrum where you're looking at the comparisons, but uh, that's partially why OnePlus is such a great company to keep an eye on, and why there's such a big fandom that basically builds around it.
Yeah.
I did want to circle back real quick on the Dex comment because and I appreciate it. Thank you, Tim, for the question, and hopefully we kind of shed some light on that. It's a hard question to ask. There's definitely not a straight line that you can draw and say this is best what. But I think there's many things also to keep in mind is that OnePlus is all about speed. They've been about
Mhm.
speed since I want to say for the longest time. They are basically now known every time they do something to the device, it's to increase the speed and performance of it. So just understand that's what you're getting with OnePlus. And Samsung has an ecosystem. There is that Dex question, which is why I want to be able to move into. We had a question from Fat Produce also talking about the way this relates to Dex is the connectivity of our devices, the ability of using smartphones as webcams. So we can connect our devices to PCs, or you can use Dex on PC or on a monitor. But something that we probably would be really, really more beneficial from, especially if our devices allow them, is actually using our smartphones as webcams or cameras to be able to do something like this. We have sensors that can do 4K 60 frames per second. Other sensors are able to do 8K at 24 frames per second. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to do something like that? Well, to use our cameras as, let's say, like connecting them to run a PC function, or even using them as a webcam. And I think that's a great option if we find more companies supporting it. Like we
Mhm.
already have some. OnePlus doesn't support desktop mode, but there is I would say the pseudo desktop mode experience in the system, and that one is in developer options. You can force it, but I haven't seen a single function yet. A long time ago, there used to be an app that did use your smartphone to allow you to use your smartphone as a webcam, but I think development for that kind of stopped a while back. I don't know if you've ever used those apps
Isn't
before.
that the isn't that the story of most Android apps? Like development eventually stops. But
It is well because and I think it's if they deem it just not a worthy venture to keep working on, right? So,
and you know what?
but I
I'm
did,
speaking from my own pain because
yeah.
like one app that I actually used for a while, they actually stopped. They literally succumbed to iOS is king in that sense, and it's Moment, the
Oh,
Moment camera. I was
oh,
just like,
that's
why?
right.
I was so sad when that
Yes.
happened.
So I
Yeah,
think what Josh is referencing essentially, I think it's Moment is decided to basically focus more on the iOS ecosystem.
yeah.
And I understand it from a development standpoint. It's easier for them to focus on the project and to designate it to iOS, where the hardware variability is not as diverse and basically it varies so much from device to device. So there's that big difference there.
Mhm.
Although they still support they're still selling their lenses. They're still supporting, they do support Pixel line of devices, cases, and so on. But I feel like, I think would have been nice to be able to maybe they'll bring it back. I don't know, or maybe limit the support because I remember they were great on the Pixel. We did actually. Speaking of which, I did want to mention. Hey, let me see. Actually, can I? No, actually, I can't switch to my second. I'm not using OBS. I learned something.
Oh,
I
well, you
can't
did
share my
earlier though.
second
You
screen.
did you did your
Oh, yeah. This is my Atom Mini. This is an HDMI controller. So I interface with
oh
so I'm using the GH5s to talk to you, and then
yeah.
I have my Sony overhead to do overhead shots.
Which, by the way, people in the chat put +1 in the chat for just how awesome TK is. Look at the setup. Like he he put a lot of thought into having an overhead rig and all of that. When I saw this last week, despite any YouTube live problems that you had, I was like, that's sick. Like good on you for having that thought.
It's I do want to say first and foremost, thank you very much to Juan Carlos for helping me get the audio part of it taken care of because I was having a major problem with the audio. The mic configuration and everything is literally I copied exactly his system when he helped me set it up. But I started doing live streams on Amazon about a couple of months ago or so. So live
Nice.
streaming became a big part of what I do. but I needed to make it so that my live stream setup was very much. Thank you again, Fat Produce, for the question. Hopefully, we kind of talked about that a little bit.
Oh, actually,
Um,
before we get too far away from that, Isa actually
yeah.
said she
Ah,
admits that I've thought about using smartphones as webcams, and I remember thinking it was absurd that it wasn't a thing. So, okay, you are obviously from you have spent more time in the developer side of things. I
yeah.
wonder if allowing a computer to access a phone's webcam is a little bit too much. Oh, it's a little too open. Like it might open it up to too many vulnerabilities as far as like data and privacy and stuff like that. Like, is that a little bit too much, or is that too much?
It,
Am I just being sort of conspiratory in that way?
from a security standpoint, Android doesn't automatically allow it. It's very similar to the way you use it. There are ways for us to. I'll explain to you what I mean. It's not impossible, and not that I can't do it right now with the device that I'm currently holding. So, but here's a phone. Here's my OnePlus, and here's me talking to you on the OnePlus directly logged in as a webcam. It's not
Oh, wow.
impossible. It's doable. You have to have the right hardware. That's where the limitation. It's not something that it's easily like I can't just put it straight in and connect it and turn it on without an app. And they would need to be
Yeah.
a host. So basically, for transmission purposes, it's totally doable. And let's go ahead with the wide angle lens so you can get a much wider look. So very, very nice, very easy to do. But you have to have the right hardware, and your device needs to support. And this is where I like to switch to the second one, an OTG adapter.
Yeah. Okay. I was just about to say, like, we're looking at HDMI out, aren't we?
But you are, but that's what I'm saying. It's not that it's not impossible to do it easily without an app. You just need the right accessory. So an HDMI adapter. So most devices, I think, with the exception of Pixel line devices, you can do it right now. So just get an HDMI out, use that, and then as long as you have some type of way of inputting that. So Camlink makes a very inexpensive HDMI into your device, and it supports up to 4K if you'd like to be able to do it. And at that point, yeah, exactly. Josh is holding I think we both have it. I'm not using mine, but is this the Elgato or is it the Camlink one?
Yeah, this is the Elgato. I usually gravitate to Elgato, to be honest. Like they have a very good ecosystem. But yeah, the HD60S. This is what I'm using to make my Final Fantasy VII remake videos. And yeah, so you still need a capture card. So I get what you're saying. Like you need to have the right hardware, which is also translating to just like one of our chat people just said. Elgato's not cheap though. That's right. If you want to use your phone as a webcam, you're going to be spending more money.
Yeah, but understand that there are different. So for me, I think the Camlink one was like about $99. I want to say I got it for about $99.
The Camlink is the Camlink is a good entry point for sure.
So think about it that way. The Camlink using an HDMI MHL adapter for maybe about $30 or so, and your phone you already have, you got it.
I think I have mine over here actually. Hold on.
It's not an impossible setup. I do appreciate though that if let's say you did want to use it over, let's say USB. So there's a little bit of a couple of things you have to keep in mind. There is that not every device supports, let's say, the fastest USB connectivity. No problem. And there's always to be that compatibility. Not every device allows you to have mirroring. So it's going to depend. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Fat Produce has a OnePlus. So this shouldn't be hard to replicate. Yeah. And it's super small. No power needed. Plug in straight to a USB 3.0 port, and the HDMI comes out straight from the adapter here. No power needed. If you need to power it, I mean, this adapter offers it, but most of them will. You can even connect the USB mouse, whatever. I use this for my DeX setup. Anytime in the live stream, if I need to show DeX, EMUI desktop, or even using the webcam to try to show things in the studio, that's my way of doing it.
We're on the topic of cameras, actually. And if we were going to use the OnePlus 8 Pro as a webcam, like that'd be awesome and whatnot. But just to harken back to a few people who are talking about it in the chat. Yes, the cameras on the 8 Pro are pretty dope. They are. Let me just say though that you've been watching me use the front-facing camera of the OnePlus 8 Pro so far, and it's probably pretty decent. But that's the way I have to put it, because like I don't know where this hole comes from, but 4K on a front camera just has to start being more normal. It just does.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I don't know why it can't be on here. Like I just don't understand it.
I think for most companies, and this isn't unique to what we're seeing here with OnePlus, but I think it's quite a few companies have not adopted the or at least allowed it to go to 4K or even 4K 60. So I think Samsung's one of the few. I think LG is one of the other few that have it, that have decided to give us that option. We know that the processor can handle it. It's not a processing issue. It's more, I'm not sure if it's something to do, like 1080p 30 should not be a standard in the front. We shouldn't have that. Realistically, and because what it does essentially, it's forcing people to use the back sensors to get the higher refresh rate, to get the better image processing that we get from there. So at the end of the day, at least give us a wider field of view for the front facing. You definitely benefit from there. And if you want to include another mode, I was going to say, so Josh was mentioning to me at the beginning, you probably noticed that the frame between my video frame and his frame are very different. But that's because of where he is. And are you using the moment lens, or I think you took it off, right?
No, not right now. I took it off. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I took it off. I just went ahead and like just rolled back. So
to make it look like you fit into the thing. So there are different things, but so I think somebody was saying here that the Nokia 9 supports 4K 30 as well. So that's one of the other devices you want to keep in mind. And yes, Matt, I think Matt Tyler was also pointing out is the iPhone 11 has 4K on the front. I think it's 4K 60 on every lens. That's what the iPhone 11 supports. So yes,
I mean, come on, you got to have your finger on the pulse, right? Because what is the number one app that everyone's using right now? It's TikTok. So like, prioritize the front camera, for God's sake. Like that's
we need to have that. We want to be able to push the technology, get better camera, and at least give us a wider field of view. And I think the best way to do it, if you don't want to have two sensors, is go with the wider view and then crop in with a second option, is like a second button on the camera. At least it's kind of like what Samsung does, right? Samsung has one sensor in the front, but they give you two options. It's really the standard view with crop or without crop. That's really what it is. But Samsung can. So here we have a question from Max. Max Weinbach is in the room. Hey man, welcome to the chat, Max. So if you guys are not familiar, Max Weinbach, a buddy of mine from XDA, leaker extraordinaire. That's what I like to call him.
You said it.
Samsung, so Samsung can do it on the with a 10 megapixel sensor on the S10 and the S10s and the S20s. So
4K on the front. I mean, come on now. I did an IG story using the LG V60. I used 4K 60 on the front. I think it was 4K 60. Wow. Yeah. Like it was a nothing IG story. I went to it was just one of the only days that I went out. I went to a bakery to support a local bakery. And I went there, I bought some bread, I walked out, and I just recorded myself holding up the bread. Now, a bunch of people in my IG chat was just like, "Whoa, that was the best looking IG story I've ever seen." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah." People care about the front-facing camera almost as much as they care about the back-facing camera nowadays, and I think that's hopefully that companies will start seeing that and appreciating the fact that not making a phone that's designed specifically for selfies and not worrying about the back cameras and then doing one or the other, that they can improve both. It's just a matter of finding the right sensors that fit the criteria that they need for the space that they have. But as Max was saying, if we have it with the S10s and the S20s. There's no reason why we can't have it with most other devices. But that's been like literally the number one thing I do when I check like specifications and capabilities. What's the maximum on the back? What are the options that you have? And of course, what are they giving us in the front? And I think the maximum, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1080-30 on the front-facing camera. And I don't think we have a.
Wonder if TK got a little bit of a freeze there. We went for a solid 55 minutes.
A way of changing that.
Oh, there we go.
Right, we're back.
You froze up for a bit. Yeah.
Actually, both of us did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I could hear you, and I don't think maybe I wasn't talking, but that's one of the reasons why I like StreamYard over YouTube. YouTube would have just totally bonked all over the place. Here, it just buffers and comes back on. I'm not trying to knock it. I realize this at the end of the day. This is going to YouTube. This is going to be on Periscope, by the way. If you guys have not noticed, I posted it both on Periscope and on YouTube. So we're going to see people coming in from both sides. But it was.
By the way, TK is a proper YouTuber now, because you haven't been. You're not a real YouTuber unless you make a video bashing YouTube.
there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of things that I think some people believe are benefiting us as a creator, but I feel like they really would benefit having a creator on their side when they're making these features to beta test these things, to let them know how does it impact the person that truly uses it, as opposed to develop first, release for beta, and then answer the questions and fix later. That I
Indeed.
feel like the development cycle should have been bring in creators in that before you release. But
Yeah.
but again, so to say this to Isa and to you, it's every minute I'm on the stream, I'm more convinced to subscribe to basically, yeah, StreamYard's gonna be my new subscription. It's
Yeah,
pretty much
I
set.
mean, I'm into it as well. All right, cool. So let's see. Is there anything else in the chat that we're talking about? I'm actually very surprised that in the chat, I mean, we're talking about OnePlus 8 Pro, because in previous streams that I've done over the last couple of days, even if the topic has nothing to do with it, people
Mhm.
kind of take over the live chat because what is on everyone's mind right now is a cheap iPhone. Like that's been what
No,
is
no,
on a lot of people's minds.
the guys so I have to say this, and I've never been able to appreciate it as much as I try to appreciate it on camera. But I want to say first and foremost, thank you to everybody that's in the live chat,
Yeah.
chatting with us, asking us questions. Of course, thank you as well, Josh. But the channel's been blessed with a great community of people that are truly passionate about tech, and it's not about the specific tech. It's just how tech can help us improve things and move forward in the technical field. Um, and I'd love to be able to also chat a little bit more about the iPhone 8. I'm sure everybody is talking about the fact that iPhone just dropped a $400 phone, without any official announcement. I mean, there was rumors, but we can talk about that at the same time, talk about an LG device, a Samsung, a OnePlus,
Hmm.
without having, concerns. It's an open tech conversation, and that's the beauty of it.
Oh yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah.
I give props to your live chat right now because they're staying on point. Like this is something I don't see often.
Dude, we got Max in the chat, so we have a whole slew of people that just want to go in there and just talk to Max and hang out with them, uh, and just to kind of also support. First comment I got from Periscope, it's
Oh,
working.
nice.
Periscope comments come in. Good morning, man. How you doing? But uh, so let's talk a little bit more. We are going to talk about the iPhone, but I want to kind of
Yeah, we'll get there.
sum up things. We kind of touched about the display. We talked about obviously the 5G capabilities, obviously there.
Hmm.
Um, so I've had the device for about 3 weeks. I'm kind of finishing up my story as far as how I want to be able to review the 8 and the 8 Pro, and I feel like I'm almost there. That we just received, I think about a week or so ago, we received the update that turned on some additional features. Um, I don't think we're going to get always on display before most. I mean, I think a lot of people started reviewing them already, but I feel like my review needs a little bit more time. Um, if you had to kind of summarize it, without obviously giving too much on it, but I mean, what's your impression of the 8 Pro and the 8 after roughly about 3 weeks of usage? Not making it into a review, but like kind of like a hot take of if somebody comes up to you, would you recommend, and what would be the things you sell them on?
And you mentioned hot take, and right now my hot take is all the people out there who might be kvetching or just being very all the people who are really bummed out that OnePlus is no longer OnePlus. I see that so much. It's just like because I remember when the live stream was happening of the keynote, and the moment the price showed up on that huge PowerPoint screen, it
Yeah.
was just F in the chat, F in the chat, rip, 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 all of that. And I remember getting like mildly annoyed at that because, like, first of all, let me just say, I am just like many of you out there. I was there for the first OnePlus One. I was there
Hmm.
for it. A
Yep.
$200, $300 device with high end
249, I think. Yep.
specifications. 249. There you go. A very cheap device that still brought some really great specs. They even put a lot of thought into it. I remember back then they even like got CyanogenMod to get on board and all that. Like
That was the
it
number.
was.
That was the selling point for me, by the way. On the OnePlus, like when I first heard about them, like that's a startup. What are they doing? The moment they
Mhm.
got CyanogenMod on there, I was like, I'm in. Sign me up. Where do I pay? Where do I pay? So
Exactly.
yeah,
And
first
I think
CyanogenMod.
a lot of people are not giving OnePlus enough credit, I think, because as we have been talking about in this entire show, OnePlus has been managing to provide an experience that, on the one hand, may not be as cheap as you remember them creating them to be, but they're
Mhm.
still undercutting everybody else in one way or another. And that is just as valuable. So I'm not here to sing the praises of OnePlus overall and whatnot, but what I will say is I have seen the evolution over time. And while I agree with you that a $400 phone with this type of specification would have been amazing, no one's going to argue that would not have been amazing. Let's just go back real quick to the conversation of this versus the S20 Ultra. The OnePlus just proved to us once again that you can actually get really dope specs and an awesome overall experience, and you don't have to like take out a mortgage for it.
Exactly.
And there were some people in the chat that were saying like, yeah, but we have financing, um, and all that stuff. And of course, yes, that's the point. Like, yeah, you can do financing on a phone,
There's some
no matter
discussions
what,
there. Yeah.
yeah, but no matter what, it's still going to end up being a certain amount of money out of your pocket, no matter what. Like, I get that it might be easier over time to pay off and whatnot, but still, looking at just the MSRP of things is kind of what we do as reviewers. And right now, it's this phone up against phones that might be at least $200 to $400 more, and it's like I'm having a great time with the 8 Pro. And isn't
Same
that
here. Yeah.
ultimately what the point is supposed to be? Is to have a good time with it?
It is. And feel good about the actual device, use it, and not feel like you're going to lose out if you go with something like this. So there you get two different options with OnePlus. And for me right now, the 8 Pro is a win if you're even considering getting an upgrade from something that came out in 2020 or 2019. I feel like the 8 Pro kind of answers all of those. And $899, by the way, you don't have to go to the $999 model. There is an $899 model. That's what it starts. And the color options that you get there are very, very nice. I personally think it's a great option for what you're getting there. The speed, the performance, the capabilities of what OnePlus is offering you, the charging speed, all of those things just culminate in a really good package. And I think they've done a lot of good work on their cameras and their performance in the system that maybe some people have had concerns with them in the years. But at the end of the day, when you're considering this or an S20, you're probably already made the decision before you got into that question. If you're truly upgrading, either you're already a Samsung user, you're comfortable in the way their UI have been doing. I did want to mention that I think Fat Produce did put a really good comment in there saying OnePlus has a great a great version of Android on their device. Oxygen OS, ever since its inception, has improved so much over the years. The way
Absolutely.
the UI works, the level of customizations that you get in there, it just gets better as time goes on. And it doesn't matter if you have to upgrade the phone. So it just gets better every time.
It's the little things about Oxygen OS, honestly, and maybe this is not something that most people will react to the way that I do. But for somebody that really prioritizes easy handling on a phone, this is the OnePlus 8, by the way. This is the smaller version of the phone, which one-handed usage is perfect. And yes, there's a running joke every time I'm on a show with Thunder E. He's like, "Get bigger hands." I'm like, "Fine, I get it. I have small hands." Like, fine, I get that. But one of the very simple details that Oxygen OS does is when you have a folder, and I usually have folders in my dock. That's how I do my home screens. You open up a folder and everything is on the bottom half of the screen. Like, I don't know if they meant it to be that way, but it looks good and it makes everything reachable. That's one of those tiny things that just makes it that much cooler.
No, definitely. They've done so much level, and it's clean, it's fast, and it's not very bogged. I mean, you get the customizations without necessarily having it to slow down the system. So you don't have to worry about cutting down an animation or anything like that. So appreciate it there. I do want to throw out a real quick shout out to Matt Tyler for watching the entire show on his Pixel 4 XL. A device that I love. I just did a live stream on that on the Amazon live stream but a couple of days ago, just talking about the Pixel 4 XL and how good of a device it still is, even in the early 2020. Obviously, since it's technically coming into the second year of its release, but I think the Pixel 4 XL, a great phone, and it has its own unique features that I think people will gravitate towards. So that's the benefit there.
It's a very comfortable phone to watch live streams like this with, because there's this entire section up here that you can put your finger on and you're not touching any screen. It's a huge bezel. Like, you could just go like this.
No, exactly. It's a great phone. I love it. And I love the fact that they're pushing out more updates as time goes on with security patches. So it's not just a limited thing. They're kind of, if in a way, doing what OnePlus does all the time, they're putting new features in with updates. Even the hardware, though, it's the same thing that you had when you first purchased the device. So really, really good. But from my point of view, I think the OnePlus 8 Pro are great. I'm happy the fact that they're in retail stores and people are able to check them out. The same way I'm happy that LG's in the stores now, that people can actually check them out when things starts to open up again. I think not all retail stores are closed. Some of them are still open, but if you're able to check them out, Josh's comment at the beginning makes absolutely perfect sense. If you go into a phone store and you see this sitting on the shelf or somewhere, and you're looking at it and you see that every angle you look at this thing, it's a different color. That's going to be a selling point. And I think it's a great marketing scheme to keep this on the 8 and not on the Pro, because that would have sold almost right away on all the Pros for sure.
Yeah, indeed. Let me see. As far as there is one thing that people will probably be thinking about between these two phones, and it's the comparison of, do you want the 8 or the 8 Pro? That's a harder question to answer, because there are things that are literally missing from the regular 8s that you might actually wish you had. Like, for example, the wireless charging, the fast wireless charging,
or even reverse. Yeah, nothing. Yeah, no wireless at all.
Oh yeah, and even the reverse. Yeah. To which I remember asking OnePlus during our meeting with them. I was like, "So you have reverse wireless charging on here? Are you going to have any accessories that take advantage of it?" And they were just like,
"I know."
And they played the fifth.
My mind. Yeah. And they're like, but they did release a new pair of ear headphones. I think the OnePlus Wireless Bullets Z.
Yes. And by the way, the Bullets Wireless they're not underrated. Underrated was the first word I wanted to say. They're actually very well beloved, but I feel like they don't get as much play as they should, because they're super reliable earbuds that actually have some pretty damn good sound. And those were the first earbuds that I used, even if they're not truly wireless. Those are the first earbuds that I used that actually had all-day battery life. And I was just like, oh, man.
And like, really fast charging too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The fast charging was like a big deal for those. And I love those. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some sort of like something to take advantage of. Like I was poking and prodding the whole time. I was like, is it a watch? Is it gonna be others? Are you going to get two OnePlus 8 Pros and charge them together?
You just see now I want to meet somebody that has a OnePlus 8 Pro. I want to do that. The Wonder Twins activate, and then suddenly you have the McLaren edition OnePlus, that the concept that we saw at CES. That would be a fun commercial to make.
True.
Oh my God. Yeah. No. It is. It's a very. I really wish that device actually does come to life. I really want to see that phone in production. It was. Sure. It's as I don't use the word sexy about a phone, but that was a sexy phone. That was just the design, the color shifting, the whole thing. Absolutely fantastic there. Max does have a question regarding.
Use the word sexy. Like, you can use the word sexy for sure. Just speaking as Jaime's coworker, the man uses the word delicious sometimes. So you're fine.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm it depends on how many beers. The conversation can change very, very, very quickly. So Max had a question, but I'm not sure 100% how to answer it. So what is the difference between the Wireless Z and the Wireless 2? Because technically the Wireless 2 is still available on site, and the Wireless 2 is still selling for about $100, where the Wireless Z is selling for about $50 once it becomes available at the end of the month. I'm not 100% sure yet, Max. I haven't seen that much specifics as far as to it. It's available in the pre-order as an option to add, but you can't even do anything else with it. So we'll know a little bit more within the next week or so when people start receiving their pre-orders, and we'll see more. Definitely, I will be picking up a pair of the Wireless Zs, mostly because I want to see the benefit. I have, I think, a couple of the Wireless 2 and the original ones. And I actually even use their wired ones for a lot of my conference calls, especially when I don't have to worry about, for microphone insert. Well, OnePlus makes great, really well-priced accessories. And I feel like $50 for wireless headphones, it's great. Even though they're not truly wireless, they do charge very fast, and you're able to get back and going really, really good. And I love the magnetic pause and replay option as well. So really good.
That was really nice.
Hopefully we'll know more about that one, Max, very, very soon. But before we go too long, I do want to start talking a little bit more about, obviously, the other hotness this week, which was obviously, I think both of us kind of picked up the product Red. I think we talked about it offline a couple of times before the actual announcement. But essentially is that so Apple dropped a phone on the market for $399 that maybe it's hard for me to explain, but the way to explain it essentially is it's a budget friendly device. Obviously, there's some compromises. This is not going to be, a one-to-one comparison to a flagship, let's say the 11 or the 11 Pro or the 11 Pro Max. But for the price point, the camera setup that they have there, they're promising 4K wireless charging, IP67, water industrial rate, the resistance there for $399. Like, it's a big game changer. And I watched Dave Lee's video, and I couldn't agree more with him on this, that they're changing the market. They just literally did something. They did something by releasing that phone to change the market on its head, because now other companies are going to have to compete in this market, where prior to this, I think all we had was the Pixel 3a. I mean,
Yes.
what do you?
I agree with that. Okay, so it's really funny because when Apple announced the iPhone SE 2020, which, by the way, I'm very happy they did not go with iPhone 9 as the name. That would have been really weird. But the iPhone SE 2020, a lot of people are going to be saying, as they do with a lot of Apple devices, that Apple changed the game again, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, everyone else who follows tech and are true enthusiasts will know that this is nothing new. That on the one hand, we've had an SE before, but having a phone at $400 that provides some high-end features has been a thing for years. And it's something that happens all the time in Asia. It happens all the time in Europe. And here in the US, and here in the US, our one main example of that has been the Pixel 3a. Now, here's the thing. And I think someone just said it there. Matt Tyler just said, this is the thing that throws the wrench in the system. They are changing it up a little bit. I said, this is the new hotness. Apple is the one changing it up in that they're making that $400 price point with the processor being as high as it is. That's been the difference, because in the Android space, if you're going to buy a phone at $400 or $500, it's going to be a Snapdragon 7 or 600 series mid-range, and it's something that honestly now Apple's going to point at their phone and go, well, why can't you do this? And to be honest, it hurts a little, because even phones that are cheaper right now, like the Moto Gs, they still opt for Snapdragon 665. Like to have smartphones that are below $500, or below even $600, that don't already use the Snapdragon 765 is already shooting yourself in the foot automatically.
Exactly.
That's my problem with it.
But I think it's the way Matt was also kind of saying it is it feels like and I hate to say this, but almost like for the point that I got from Dave's video was it's a way to get somebody into the iOS. It's actually a very smart move on Apple's side. It took away that little barrier so outside of the US, if you've ever traveled outside, you notice that iPhones are not always the number one phone. It's not the same way we have it here. What you end up having is a lot of people will opt to go for Samsung, other devices, Xiaomi devices. I mean, there's a big market for many, many other companies that put out phones, like Josh is saying, that are much more priced at a much lower price. The example would be this device that runs the 865 chipset with 144 hertz is sub $600. It's going to retail for sub $600. So we're talking, there are devices outside of the US that exist that compete. But because Apple put it in with the A13, I think what happens is now other companies are going to have to try to find ways to do so, which at the end, if nothing else, benefits us. As the consumer, giving us choices in that mid-tier, because we're starting to see so many more flagships go into over $1,000, that mid-tier section needs more competition with better processing power. And I feel like Apple at least made the indicator there. I think Google's doing a great job with the 765 chipset, which at least some of the leaks that we've seen right now with the 4A and the 4A 5G, I think. But I would love to see more devices just give us that opportunity to have better choices. That's literally all I'm asking. I want to have more choices.
I agreed, and as Matt Tyler just mentions, that an in-house built chipset is probably cheaper to put in a cheaper phone than it is for anything else. Which I kind of speculated that as well, because obviously we're dealing with the likes of MediaTek and Qualcomm right now, who put in all of the effort and money to actually create mid-tier processors. And of course, they refresh those year after year, and that's a really large cost. I speculated at one point that for Apple, it's probably more cost efficient to just continue making the chip they've been making this entire time, rather than retool from the ground up in order to make like an A13, or I'm sorry, a Bionic A something that's like
Yeah,
A13 mini or whatever.
I was gonna say A13A or something like that.
Exactly. So it kind of makes
East,
sense to me. So really the cost benefits there are going to be in terms of mainly the hardware, and like you were saying earlier, and like we all know, is that there's one camera. It's going to be a much lower resolution and much smaller display overall. They're going to
yeah.
be reusing. They're probably reusing a whole lot of metal that they haven't been using in the last two generations of the iPhone.
It literally looks like the 7, the 8, and I think somebody said that it looks like the 6. I don't have a 6. I don't have access to a 6 to say, but I know, yeah, it looks pretty much like it's essentially the same chassis. But which again, to Fat Produce and Matt Tyler's comments there, yeah, using your own silica does make sense. I feel like also using last year's silicon could also make perfect sense. Last year's flagship processor is a lot cheaper if it's still being made to put it into a
If it's
device
still
that
being
you
made,
really.
that's the point, though.
There's a big.
Made.
So that's the thing. But I think so. LG used to use this methodology where they would release the G series with last year's processor, and then the V series would have this year's current version of the processor. But then they moved, and now everything runs the same. But I think the opportunity of having something that runs the 855 in 2020 right now is extremely possible, and something that you could definitely appreciate. The Pixel 4 XL has an 855 in it. It runs perfectly fine. There's no question about it. Obviously, the X65 does have improvements. We do see there. Obviously, if you want 5G, that's where it kind of becomes a little bit. Very few devices with 855 have that. But I feel like at least what we'll see once people start getting the device and see basically is how does the experience compare? Okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to compare? Yeah.
I was actually going to ask, like, not to shift too far in a different direction, but as far as you mentioned at the beginning of this that we both got the red editions, and now
Yes.
Apple did a good job of making it clear that, I mean, they've always used the product red edition to the proceeds of that usually go to some sort of charity, and in this case, that one is going to go towards COVID research and relief.
Exactly.
But as far as just the general device look and feel of the SE 2020, where do you land on the somewhat nostalgic throwback of the design of the phone?
So for me, I was a big fan of the original one, the form factor, the I would say the ease of use of it. It's not as small, obviously, as the Nokia, the little tiny Nokia. I think Isa loves that one, that little tiny Nokia phone. I played with that for a little bit. That was like my pocket phone. But by comparison now, if you really think about it, it's bigger than the original SE. I think the original SE was very nice. It kind of looked like a small version of I think, or was it the actual same size as the 4? But it was essentially supposed to be more of a budget-friendly version of an iPhone. And I think, I know Carlos loves his and, of course, recommends it to death. I think it's a great device. It's building on a nostalgic factor that people wanted a smaller option, right? We went on this. And we're still going, obviously, bigger screens, smaller bezels. That's the main trend there. But there's always going to be that person that wants a smaller phone that fits in their hand. And I think they went away from that ever since the iPhone 10. The 10 was the first one they started to go without having the touch everything, no fingerprint sensor or anything. And then when we went to the 11, there was no more 7 and 7 Pro. That form factor dropped. I think this is where it comes in. And of course, unless you go with the 11, but I like it. I like the fact that they're trying to bring in something new. I'm trying to remember.
Is it ultimately new though? Because like we were saying, this is a throwback design that is actually bringing back certain things like Touch ID, the home button, stuff like that. But
the question would be, we need to see which version of the Touch ID. See, that's the thing. On paper, everything looks beautiful. So we got to see how it actually performs. So that's really where the compromises are. Did they use the latest version of the Touch ID that they had on the 8 Plus before before they went away from it, or are they going to go back to the 7 and the 6 version of the Touch ID, which they had some problems? So those are the concerns. The new factor or the new function part of it that I feel like is there is that they actually now have it as a line. Before it was a one-off. Now it's a line. So we had the SE, this is the SE2. So the conventional thinking for me is that now we have an option, hopefully, that will continue in 2021 and later on. That's partially what I'm referring to new. Not new as in the 5. Like I said, you can, from picture-wise, you could put in an iPhone 8 or 7, and you wouldn't
Yeah,
know any
it's going to
difference.
look very similar. Yeah. And I'll admit that I'm actually kind of excited because, as many people already know, I used to
Yep.
work at Android Authority. And for years, we looked at every iPhone that came out, we literally got not necessarily to use as a daily device. We ultimately would buy iPhones just to drop them. Like that was just what it was.
And here's
So
Issa's comment.
unfortunately,
Just yeah.
the
No,
tiny
no,
Nokia
just
is like, well,
yeah, no, I see it in a lot of her posts. It's like she loves that phone, but I love it
yeah,
too. It's a great form factor. But sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No worries. So I'm actually kind of excited to try out this SE because it is an updated version of the same type of phone that I only really broke back in the day.
Okay.
And because we would always drop all of them. It started with iPhone 4, 5, and then it continued on from there. And yeah, this particular form factor is not something that I actually used as a main device. And I
Mhm.
want to feel that, being from the Android side, especially working at an Android publication, I was always thinking to myself, like, what is that like? And to enjoy this form factor that people still look so nostalgically back on. And I think that's a funny way of companies sort of like skirting 2020 is that they try to have a little bit of a nostalgia factor with every phone that they put out. And right now, the SE is like the best example of that because now we're going back to certain features that at one point Apple did say that they were like, no, we're moving on, but now it's
So
back.
Isa just pointed out an amazing feature of the iPhone SE that it has been on my mind for the last couple of days, mostly because we can't use Face ID. It's been
Yeah.
about a month, and I think a lot of people that normally use Face ID have recognized that if you go outside of the house, you can't use it, and you have to have Touch ID. And I think it's a great way. I'm hoping this may end up being a hint for Apple. Maybe I don't know if it's even in. There's probably no way for it to make it into the next version of the iPhone, the 12, or the leaks that we're seeing, being in the how development cycles kind of go. But yeah, you're right. We need something that is a little bit more tangible and something that
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily put us in one camp over the other. So that I appreciate that comment. And I think one of her other comments before was she wants more colors. So I have a feeling she wanted a pink one and more colors to match the different styles that people have outside. So it's more of the and hopefully we will see. I mean, I think if there's a good demand for it, there's no reason why Apple wouldn't be able to release more colors. They've done it in the past.
And you think this is going to sell, right? Like, there's probably no question that people are going to be scooping this up, and like, because Apple did a good job of sort of subverting expectations because their phones were coming out from the 8. We went right into the 10, the 10s, and out to the 11. They were all premium devices. You never really had like the 10R. I get it that the 10R was a thing, but it's still, I don't know, like not it wasn't really everyone's favorite phone. Like people still thought back to the SE, the original SE, with like all this wistfulness, and now they
And
bring
they
back the
wanted
SE again.
Exactly. And they wanted to actually get a successor to it. That was the other thing. A lot of people didn't they felt like that specific form factor was ignored for some time. But like I said, the
Mhm.
fact that we have a version 2 tells us it's aligned. So the goal hopefully is that they continue with that. But what I would probably say if we're looking at some of the main text things to kind of start circling back and kind of summarizing some of the things, we had two major announcements going on. Not coincidentally, it was also the announcement of, but not a lot of people kind of covered it. The official announcement of the Red Magic 5G European model of this, not the Chinese model, because I think that one's already out. So that was if you're in the European market and you're looking to getting obviously 144 hertz display, check out the channel. There's a few videos there. I did a gaming video on that one earlier in the week, just showcasing some of the 144 hertz supporting games. And I'm trying to build a library of games that are supporting the 120 on the OnePlus 8 Pro, because that's also a lot of cool things. It actually has a lot of good hardware to be a great gaming device, stereo speakers, great vibration motor, all of the things that we love about OnePlus. So, um, yeah, sorry, Isas. She
Yeah,
correct.
thanks.
She's
Always.
yeah. No, I realize it's an aesthetical thing. I think it matches the look, but I think it's we do need more colors. Obviously, that always works for anybody that wants to get it. And personally, with OnePlus devices, I love the fact that they're doing great gradient colors. Like the matte finish on this one is really nice. Super, super. Like no fingerprints will show up on it almost at all. One downside to the to the to the interstellar glow to quote Marquez, it will be collecting more fingerprints than a CSI agent in a year in literally less than 2 seconds. I heard that one and I cracked up. I mean, that was a good joke. I like it.
Doing this all the time with that phone.
I'll
Yeah.
That's why I have the sandstone on, baby. There's the reason. I have the
I gotta
see-through
put my
on
skin on
this.
this.
Oh man, yes, no, definitely. I think Zach from Jerry Rig Everything worked with D-Brand on some basically, internals. I forget. No, I think what's it called? The Unboxed. There's a series with Jerry Rig Everything directly with D-Brand. I think that provides skins for your smartphones.
Oh,
If you'd like
Teardown.
to check them out. Teardown, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
But so with that and with everybody, I want to say, of course, thank you to everybody for joining the chat. I don't want to take too much of your time. I think we're getting closer to an hour and a half.
No, we're good. This is fun.
The main benefit, of course, what we had this week is we saw tech that speaks to everybody. You had the super premium basically being proof that you can get 120 hertz with QHD for under 1,000 at $899, starting at $899 in a great form factor, great hardware, great specifications. And from a company that's known for speed. And what I mean by that is they're known for providing you the best experience time after time with every update. And with the fact that they gave us the ability of actually, as Josh kind of mentioned earlier, that we finally have both the 8 Pro and the 8 in the same market at the same time, so that you have the option to be able to select what you feel like fits your budget and fits your needs the best. And carriers provided. I think somebody was asking before also, does the 8 Pro work on Verizon? I probably would imagine that it would work, but not on 4G and not on 5G. Yeah, so it's not going to support
all the 8 Pros you can buy unlocked on Amazon and on OnePlus.com do support both the sub-6 and the millimeter wave.
Oh, okay. So that I missed that one on that one. So I guess the answer is yes. If you wanted, then the Pro would be the best way to go. And Unlocked Pro would work on everything, where the 8 only needs to be Verizon specific. I think Verizon is currently only showing the 8 or only supporting it. T-Mobile is supporting the 8 Pro. And of course, you can get them. And I think also that was the other big surprise. By the end of the month, OnePlus is officially going to be selling on Amazon. So you'd be able to actually buy it directly from OnePlus on Amazon and get their Prime shipping and so on. So if you like to use Amazon, you prefer using Amazon as opposed to going directly to OnePlus, they're going to support it. And of course, there's links to most of the things that we're talking to you guys about, to OnePlus, to Josh's information, all of that stuff in the description below. But Josh, let me know what's going on with you. What are you working on right now that people can look forward to seeing from you?
I have upcoming videos on, again, the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro. I've actually been toying around with this idea that, because one of the main segments on my channel is a real world camera test, but the world is different now. So I'm calling it the work from home camera test. So
I call it the backyard camera test because that's where I can go.
You're basically going to be seeing what a day in the life is right now in terms of like what I do. And a lot of it's going to be the same in every single camera test. It's just I wake up, I make my coffee, and it's going to be like this really cinematic, because the 4K cinema aspect ratio on the OnePlus 8 Pro and the 8, I love that they have that. It's such a fun thing to use. So you have a really like nice aspect ratio that looks super cinematic. So you can actually see me brew my coffee in the morning in that cinematic method. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that video very, very soon. I actually am we're trying to dive into more forms of content in general with me. And by the way, I just saw the comment right now, boo Joshua with the coffee, where's the tea? Okay. As people should know about me, coffee to start, tea keeps me going. All right. So it's 11:30 right now where we are in the West Coast. So that's why I have coffee right now. In any case, the other thing that I'm going to be working on is the Mi 10 Pro. And I actually have to finish up my coverage of that. It's just that when the Mi 10 Pro came in, all of a sudden, like the Mi 10 Pro came in at just the right time in terms of like when we received them. So we got the Mi 10 Pro and it was like, okay, I can use this for a few days. And then all of a sudden, every announcement started happening. It was just like, no, everyone calm down. So the Mi 10 Pro actually had to be pushed a little bit, but that's actually a good thing because there's a lot to talk about on the Mi 10 Pro.
There's a lot, yes.
So there's a ton, and which includes the price. Price is such a big deal right now with every single phone. Like people are talking about it with OnePlus. You're no longer the flagship killer. You're now flagship. The iPhone SE came out. Now the Mi 10 Pro, coming from a company that famously has like small profit margins because they always have like a really low price point. Mi 10 Pro is like, that's the phone that I'm like, where did this price come from? You know, it's unheard of for Xiaomi to go into the $1,000 like territory.
Yeah,
So
it's a bold movement for sure, definitely. Yes.
mhm. So yeah, it's that's the other thing I'm going to be working on. And I will say, like, not really a spoiler alert, but I will say the Mi 10 Pro, it's an incredibly balanced phone. It is really good. But knowing Xiaomi for years and how they would provide that experience for a lower price, that's me channeling every OnePlus fan right now who feels that way
Yeah,
about
like
the Pro.
the Redmi, yeah, the Redmi K30 Pro. There's so many other
Hmm.
options. So for me, so I don't have the Pro. I have the standard Mi 10, and it's one of the my experience with Xiaomi is starting to develop. I've used Xiaomi devices in the past. The Mi Mix 3 was the one I used before, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with the experience. So I think Xiaomi has a lot to offer, but
Yeah.
again, I would look forward to obviously to seeing your review of the Pro. I'm working on my review of the standard Mi 10, which I'm also very surprised with that. The form factor, wireless charging, reverse wireless charging, the display, the UI, the experience, it's different than when you get it. They did tailor it. I have to say they've tailored it quite well for the European market,
Hmm.
and making it obviously more user friendly for a non basically, because you have to keep in mind a lot of the Xiaomi devices, if you buy them from China, are tailored to the Chinese market. When you buy something from them that is released in the European market, they've done more work to make it work for us. So again, but looking forward to seeing your coverage on that one, and seeing how that goes.
By the way,
Any and
I
then
did notice that you put that comment down there. Do a T
yeah, yeah,
comparison. Okay, so at some point, I am actually going to bring back. I want to talk about tea more often in my channel.
yeah,
But
yeah,
at the very least, I finally found a way to bring back tea because the way that I present my podcast on my channel is a little bit different. So you're
yeah.
actually watching the podcast being broadcast from the phone, and then in the corners of the frame, I'm actually making my tea in the corners. That's why it's called Tech and Tea. But yeah, so just to put it out there, I use tea in my videos sometimes, it's not in everything. You know, I'm not a liar.
Guys, if there's ever a little bit of behind the scenes, you need to know he does carry tea with him in his bag. It's not a
Oh yeah.
trick. It's not a joke. Every single time I've ever run into Josh, there's always tea in the bag. And sometimes I've actually seen him giving it away. So that's the other thing. He's always recommending different types. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, no. It's not a
I have a dream that I will no longer carry business cards. I will just give someone a bag of tea and it has my information on it.
I love that. That would be really good. So just to guys, make sure you guys know, Josh actually let us know how do people connect with you. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, but if they want, there'll be information in the description. But if you can let us know, what's the best way to talk to you or get in touch
Ooh,
with you.
standard outro coming up from me. All right, so you can find me on all social media as well as on YouTube. On social media, mainly Instagram and Twitter, you can find me with the handle at JVTechT. That's JV. You know me. I love tech and I love to drink me some tea. You can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Joshua Vergara is my full name. And as always, as TK said, links are in the description down below.
Exactly. And you'll always see us kind of interacting. And the picture that I posted online, by the way, for the preview of this on Twitter was a picture that Josh and I took, or Josh took,
Mm,
doing a hangout with us here at the Getty last year. And that was
yeah.
just a beautiful time. And I was like thinking, like, what image can I use for, like, to post that? Because I was going to use it for the thumbnail. That's such a great image for a podcast. You're like, we're about to go on podcast. Two of us taking pictures, obviously different context. That was a moment lens picture taken,
Yeah.
posted, so on. So really happy about that. Thank you very much to joining us. As usual, TK Bay, you guys probably already know here with the channel, TKDSL8655 on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and actually now Amazon Live. Surprise, surprise! I'm venturing out. They do
Mhm.
have their own influencer program that's developing as well, so we'll see how that goes.
And by the way,
But
congratulations on that. It's great to see that you're on multiple platforms like that. And I mean, it's great to see that you're on Amazon.
I'm trying to. It was first and foremost. It was a really. I was very happy that they approached me, that they asked me to join
Yeah.
the program, and it's something that kind of I feel like it's like I said, because of what Amazon did, because of that approach and that venture, I had to change my entire setup. But in the
Mm,
process, I got this one configuration that literally works with almost every scenario that I have. I can record normal videos, live stream, podcast, do all of the stuff at the same time, and then have the setup to be able to change cameras, jump over to the camera, like I said, show you guys the camera from the phone, decks, all of that. Yeah, very. I appreciate the compliment there, and it is a lot of work, but I love the fact that people appreciate it, and everybody's doing good. And as Isa says, of course, stay safe, and thank you, Isa, for joining us. I know I don't even know what time it is, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty late.
It is. It is officially 2:45 in the morning for her.
Oh man, Oh, okay. So this one is actually cool. TK Bay with TB and T in the beginning. I like it.
I am into it.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And so with that, I want to say thank you very much. Be safe, stay healthy. Try to connect with family and friends. And of course, as we do, Josh and I, we talk all the time offline. This is just us putting it in front of you guys and allowing everybody to chat with us. And I want to say thank you very much. We'll see you guys next week on Saturday morning with tech. Hopefully, we'll see some new faces. If not, you'll see my beautiful face next week.
Awesome.
I'll see you guys. Thank you very much.
All right. Enjoy your tea, everybody.
And we're going to go ahead and end it now.